My girlfriend got drunk, compared me to my best friend in front of everyone. Your friend is more handsome than you. You can tell he's better. Then mocked me on social media and started DMing that my friend had always had his eyes on her. My name's Saul, 27 years old, and I have been with my girlfriend, Estefania, who is 25, for almost 3 years. I always described her as a calm, reserved, even shy woman in many social situations. She was never the kind of person who would draw attention at parties or gatherings. On the contrary, she used to stay quiet or participate very moderately in conversations. And maybe that is why I fell in love with her, because she transmitted a sense of calm, because with her I could be myself, without feeling like I was competing with anyone. But there was something I had known for a long time. When she drank alcohol, her personality changed quite a bit. It is not that she became an aggressive or problematic person, but she did lose her discretion. She could go from being someone quiet to becoming the center of attention, making comments that she would never say at another time. They were small things at the beginning, like talking too loud, sharing personal details that were irrelevant, or making jokes that were sometimes not funny. I saw it as a curious contrast in her character. I even took it with a certain humor because it was not frequent. Estefania did not usually drink much, maybe 1 or 2 drinks in very specific situations. However, what happened recently completely changed my view of everything. And honestly, it still hurts me to remember the scene. A few weeks ago, one of my closest friends organized a gathering at his house. It was nothing extraordinary, just a group of old friends, some beers, background music, and long conversations of the kind you enjoy because there are no pretenses. Among the guests was Douglas, my best friend since high school. He has been with me through everything: family problems, my first relationships, good times and bad. I always had a lot of trust in him, and I was proud that he got along well with Estefania, because for me it was important that the 2 most significant people in my life could coexist without any problem. The gathering was going well. I was comfortable. Estefania was more lively than usual because she had had a couple of drinks, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. At some point in the night, we started joking about old anecdotes, stories from school, from jobs, from trips. It was a relaxed atmosphere, as it had always been with that group of friends. But then it happened. I do not remember exactly how the conversation started. I think someone commented on the personality differences between couples, like those contrasts of he is very serious and she is very extroverted, or things like that. We were all sitting in the living room with a couple of bottles on the table when Estefania, with a smile that already showed the effect of the alcohol, said something that froze me. With total naturalness, looking around, she blurted out, "Well, I have always thought that Douglas is much more handsome than Saul." There was an awkward silence. Everyone stopped talking instantly. I looked at her without understanding, thinking that maybe I had misheard, but no. She had said it in a clear voice, in front of everyone. And as if that were not enough, she added, "You can tell he does it well." I do not know if she was referring to the way he looked, how he behaved, or if she was alluding to something else, but at that moment it did not matter. What mattered to me was that she had said that in front of my friends, in front of Douglas, in front of me. And she said it with a lightness that left me paralyzed. No one laughed, no one followed her comment. It was as if suddenly the whole atmosphere had collapsed. I felt an intense heat rise to my face, a mixture of shame, anger, and pain. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was burning. Douglas, visibly uncomfortable, tried to divert the attention by saying something like, "Well, let us better talk about something else." But the damage was already done. I stood up without saying much. I just remember mumbling that I needed air, and I left the house with my heart beating 1,000 miles an hour. Behind me I heard Estefania say, laughing nervously, "It was just a joke." A joke? That is what she used as a justification, but for me, it was not. When I got to my car, I sat inside and closed the door. I felt a lump in my throat that prevented me from breathing normally. My mind was spinning. Had she really said that? What did she mean to imply? Why in front of everyone? Why in front of Douglas? The worst part was remembering the faces of my friends, that dead silence, the evident discomfort of Douglas. Everyone had heard my girlfriend say that he was more attractive than me and that, somehow, you could tell he might be better. How was I supposed to process something like that? I stayed in the car for a good while trying to decide what to do. On one hand, I wanted to leave and never speak to her again. On the other, I thought about the years of our relationship, about everything we had been through, about how calm and discreet she had always been. I tried to convince myself that it was the alcohol, that she did not mean it, but at the same time it hurt to think that when drunk, one tends to let out what one has kept inside. Finally, I started the car and went to my house. I could not stay there. I could not see her that night. The next morning, Estefania wrote to me several times. Her messages were short at first, asking where I was, if I was okay, that she did not want me to be angry. Then, seeing that I was not answering, she elaborated more, saying that what she said had been just a joke, that she did not really think that everyone had exaggerated. According to her, she was just playing, but I did not feel that way. It was not a light comment. It was a direct blow to my self-esteem, to my dignity. I felt humiliated, exposed, ridiculed in front of my friends. And worst of all, in front of Douglas, my best friend, whom I never saw as a threat, but who was now in the middle of a situation that neither of them asked for. I spent the whole day without answering her. In my head, there was a constant debate. Should I give her the opportunity to explain herself, or was this enough to end the relationship? Because even if she told me it was a joke, the simple fact that those words came out of her mouth hurt me too much. That afternoon, Douglas called me. It was not common for him to seek me out outside of gatherings, or when we were planning something, so I answered. His tone was serious. He told me he wanted to clarify what had happened, that he did not want me to think there was anything strange between him and Estefania. He assured me that he had never given her any reason to think that what she said had taken him by surprise, and that he was as uncomfortable as I was. I believed him because I have known Douglas for many years, and he has always been direct with me. But that did not change the fact that my girlfriend was the one who created that absurd and painful situation. That night, when Estefania insisted that we talk, I agreed to see her. She came to my house with a seemingly calm attitude, but as soon as I looked into her eyes, I noticed she was nervous. Saul, really, what I said was silly. I do not mean it. She told me almost immediately, before I could utter a word. Then why did you say it? I asked, my voice colder than I expected. I do not know. I guess I wanted to be funny. Everyone was joking, and I wanted to join in. I did not think you would take it that way. Her explanation did not convince me. First, because no one was joking about anyone's appearance or about intimate things. Second, because to make a joke she chose to compare me to my best friend, and that is not just anything. Do you know what I felt when you said it? I asked, trying not to raise my voice. I felt like you were telling me in front of everyone that I'm not enough for you. She tried to get closer and take my hand, but I pulled away. Her face showed frustration. It was not that big of a deal, Saul. You are really making a drama out of something I said when I was drunk. And that sentence finished breaking me. When one is drunk, the truth comes out. She looked at me with wide eyes, as if she could not believe what she had just heard. Immediately, she shook her head and her voice broke. No, Saul, do not think that. I do not feel that way. It is not the truth. I just said something silly. And suddenly she started to cry. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing, repeating that she loved me and did not want to lose me. For a moment I hesitated. Not because I completely believed her tears, but because I had been with her for so long that it was difficult to process the idea that everything could fall apart in a matter of days. Estefania, I said in the firmest tone I could manage. Every time you drink you end up saying or doing things that embarrass me. This is not the first time you have blurted out something reckless, but now you have crossed a line you should not have crossed. She looked up through her tears, but far from showing remorse, her expression changed. I saw her transform in a matter of seconds. She stopped crying and frowned. So what do you want me to do? She answered with an annoyed tone. This is who I'm. When I drink, I loosen up, I say what I think, I make jokes. That is me, Saul. If you really love me, you have to accept me as I'm. I was frozen. Accept that you humiliate me? I replied in disbelief. Accept that you compare me to my best friend and say it in front of everyone as if it were funny? Is that what you were talking about? She sighed, crossed her arms, and said something that completely broke me inside. Do not be so sensitive. The phrase hit me like a punch in the stomach. She went from crying and asking for forgiveness to being cynical, and then again to justifying it as if I were the problem. I was surprised by the ease with which she changed roles. First victim, then guilty, then executioner. And in the midst of it all, I was trying to make sense of it. The argument did not last much longer. I was too hurt to continue, and she, seeing that I was not giving in, decided to get up. She grabbed her things, said, "Do whatever you want," and left my house angry, leaving me with more questions than answers. I did not sleep that night. I tossed and turned in bed, remembering her words, replaying the scene from the party, thinking about how drastically her attitude had changed. And worst of all, the feeling that something between us had been irreversibly broken. The next day, while I was at work, I opened my cell phone to distract myself a bit. The first thing I saw was a post from Estefania on Facebook. I could not believe it. She had shared a meme that said, "When you break up with your boyfriend, and you can finally hook up with his friend without guilt." The text was accompanied by a laughing emoji and several reactions from her friends who surely had no idea what had happened. I felt a pang in my chest. Anger ran through me from head to toe. It was not just a mockery of me. It was a direct and public message, implying that her joke at the party had some truth behind it. I did not comment on anything. I did not write to her or react, but inside my blood was boiling. Throughout the same day, she posted more things in the same tone. Phrases like, "They said cheers to the unfaithful girls, and I flew. How great it is not to have to give explanations to anyone. Men think you will never leave them, but surprise." Each post was like rubbing salt in the wound, and I did not understand how she could do it so quickly without even letting things calm down. Just a few hours after arguing, she was already making a spectacle on social media. In the afternoon, I received an unexpected call, Douglas. At first, I thought it would be awkward to talk to him after everything that had happened, but I decided to answer. "Saul, brother, do you have a minute?" he said in a serious voice. "Yes, tell me," I answered, trying to sound calm. "I saw what Estefania posted, and I want you to know that I'm very sorry. I do not want you to think that I have anything to do with it. Really, all of this makes me uncomfortable. I feel like it is my fault, because if I had not introduced you, none of this would be happening." I was silent for a few seconds. I understood his concern, but I could not let him take the blame for something he had not done. "Douglas, you do not have to apologize for anything. This has nothing to do with you. She was the one who decided to say those things, and now she is the one posting stupid things. Do not carry something you did not do." He sighed on the other side. "Even so, it hurts me because I know how it affects you. You did not deserve that. And if I can do anything to prevent it from getting worse, tell me." I thanked him for his words. In a way, it relieved me to know that he was as uncomfortable as I was, that there was nothing hidden or any intention on his part. But at the same time, it hurt me that Estefania showed not the slightest remorse. While Douglas was worried about me, she was dedicating her time to laughing at the situation on social media. The rest of the day was a mixture of anger and sadness. My close friends had also seen the posts, and some sent me private messages to ask me if I was no longer with Estefania. I just answered that I preferred not to talk about it. I did not want to give explanations, nor did I want her to continue feeding the drama with more attention. That night, when I got home, I opened social media again and saw that Estefania had uploaded a story with music and a phrase that said, "He who laughs last, laughs best," accompanied by a photo of herself with a glass in her hand, as if nothing mattered to her. I wondered at what point she became that person. Where was the shy and calm woman I fell in love with? Was she always like this and I did not see it? Or did the alcohol and circumstances simply reveal a side of her I never wanted to accept? I did not know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her, to tell her how much what she was posting hurt me, to demand respect even if we were no longer together. But another part of me thought, what for? What do I gain by responding to someone who clearly does not want to amend anything? I felt trapped in a stalemate. And the worst part is that even though I tried to stay calm, the words she blurted out that night kept repeating in my head like an unbearable echo. "Douglas is more handsome than Saul. You can tell he does it well." That night, Douglas called me again, not to talk about the problem itself, but to invite me out to clear my head. He told me he understood if I did not want to, but that it was not good for me to stay locked up dwelling on the same thing. I thanked him for the gesture and accepted, although with some reluctance, not because I distrusted him, but because it still seemed strange to me that he was so involved in something he himself had not caused. The truth is that, at that moment, the last thing I wanted was to feel alone. I wonder to this day what would have happened if Estefania, instead of mocking me publicly, had had the humility to admit her mistake and truly apologize to me. maybe things would have been different. But with each post, with each mockery, she herself dug the abyss between us deeper. The initial wound was the humiliation at the party, but what finally made it unbearable was seeing how she scoffed at the situation without caring about the harm she was causing me. And the saddest part of all is that I still do not understand why. Update. After everything that happened with Estefania's posts on social media, I had already come to the conclusion that it was best not to have any more contact with her. Her cynicism, her mockery, and the way she turned a painful situation into a public spectacle convinced me that it was not worth insisting on something that was clearly broken. However, just when I thought the worst had passed, her messages started coming. They were not apologies or attempts to fix things, but something more twisted. First, she wrote to me in the middle of the night, "Have you talked to Douglas yet? I'm sure he did not tell you that he always looked at me differently." I read the message and was paralyzed. I erased it from my mind thinking she was just trying to provoke me, but the next day she continued, "If you only knew everything he told me when you were not around." And she added a laughing face emoji. My heart was pounding. I did not know if she was telling the truth or just wanted to poison me against my friend. But the truth is, it was working. Although I tried to remain calm, a part of me began to doubt. The messages did not stop. In another one she said, "The truth is that he really knows how to treat a woman. You never noticed. And then, do not be surprised if one day you see him with me." Every word burned inside me. I wanted to ignore her, but every time my phone rang, anxiety forced me to read, and every time I did, my mind was filled with images and suspicions. A few days went by like this until I could not take it anymore. I saved all the messages and decided to confront Douglas directly. I did not want to make a scene or accuse him without proof, but I needed to look him in the eye and hear his version. One afternoon, I went to his house without warning. He was surprised to see me, but he welcomed me immediately. "What is up, brother?" he asked, noticing that I was serious. I was silent for a few seconds trying to find the right words. Finally, I let it out. "Douglas, I need to know the truth. Estefania is writing things to me about you. Messages where she implies that you are interested in her, that something happened between you or that it could happen." He opened his eyes wide, visibly surprised. "What? No, Saul, never. You know me. I want to believe you," I replied. "But she is very insistent, and I'm not going to lie to you. She is starting to make me doubt." Douglas looked at me fixedly, and without wasting time, he took out his cell phone. "Here, check it. Check my conversations with her, with whoever you want. I have nothing to hide." I hesitated. I did not want to feel like a spy or a paranoid person, but at the same time I needed that peace of mind. So I accepted. I started to review the chat with Estefania. What I found left me frozen, but not because of what I feared, but because of the opposite. The conversation was completely cordial, with nothing strange, no flirting, no double meanings. There were messages like, "Hey Estefania, is Saul with you? Tell him to check the group. He is not responding. Do you know what size jacket Saul wears? I saw a 2-for-1 promotion and I want to get him one." Everything was practical things related to me, to the group, to normal silly things between friends. Nothing that even resembled what she had implied to me. I looked up and saw Douglas waiting for me, calm, but with a certain sadness. "See," he told me, "nothing ever happened. I was never interested in her that way, Saul. I respect our friendship and I would never betray that." I felt a lump in my throat. Shame hit me all at once because I realized I was about to doubt the only person who had always been by my side. I closed the cell phone and gave it back to him. "Forgive me, brother," I said, looking down. "I should not have doubted you." But her messages were driving me crazy. Douglas put his hand on my shoulder. "You do not have to apologize. I understand that it affects you. She wants to poison you against everyone so that you carry the blame alone. But I'm with you, and I do not want you to lose our friendship over something that has no basis." I was silent for a moment and nodded. "Thank you, really." Douglas stood up, went to the kitchen, and came back with a couple of beers. "All right, forget about that for a moment. Let us relax." I accepted. We opened the bottles and sat on the couch. The first sip tasted different, like a relief after so much tension. We spent several hours talking, not just about what had happened, but about life in general. He reminded me that we had been friends for more than 10 years, that we had been through much harder things together, and that we had always come out ahead. "You know something, Saul?" he told me at one point, looking at the bottle in his hands. I think that sometimes the real problem is not what they tell us, but what we decide to believe. She knows where to hit you. She knows that what would hurt you the most would be to think that I betrayed you. That is why she sent you those messages, because she wants to sow doubts even if they are not real. I kept thinking about his words. He was right. Estefania knew me well enough to know what my weak points were. And the worst part is that she almost succeeded. I took a breath and replied, "You do not know how glad I'm that I came." If I had just stayed with what she wrote to me, who knows what I would have thought? Douglas smiled, raised his bottle, and said, "That is why we are here, brother, so you do not get carried away by poison." We clinked our bottles and continued talking. Little by little, the tension began to disappear, and I felt a huge relief, as if I had finally closed a door that had me trapped. That night, when I got home, I felt more at peace. Yes, what happened with Estefania still hurt, but there were no longer any doubts about Douglas. His transparency and willingness to show me everything proved that the trust between us was still intact. I realized that in the end, Estefania had been caught in her own contradictions. First, she humiliated me in front of everyone. Then she played the victim. Then she mocked me on social media. And finally, she tried to turn me against the person I appreciate the most. All in a matter of weeks. And that is when I understood something important. Sometimes it is not necessary to look for logical explanations for the behavior of someone who does not want to take responsibility for their mistakes. There is simply nothing to salvage. Today, as I write this, I can say that I have finished closing the chapter with her. There was no reconciliation, no final conversation, just the certainty that the best thing I can do is stay away, not out of hatred, but for the sake of dignity. On the other hand, my friendship with Douglas came out stronger. That beer at his house was not just a shared drink, but a reminder that there are bonds that are worth much more than any broken relationship. And although it hurt me to go through all of this, now I see it as a lesson about boundaries, about not allowing someone to play with my self-esteem, and, above all, about valuing those who are truly there for you.